Okay. Um, okay. Welcome to Spanish 102. Sorry, I had a little bit of a rough start there with the Zoom, but we should be good to go now. And tonight we're going to look at chapter 6. So we're going to this semester, we're going to cover chapters 6 through 10, and we're going to go in chronological order. So you can even look ahead and see what we're going to be studying. Okay. And so if you would go to page 165 in your textbook, 1 second. If you go to page 165 in your textbook, this is where our lesson is. Everything that you need to know is contained in your textbook. That's what we'll cover. And what we're really looking forward to doing here is focusing on the parts of the text that you need to know to do well on your homework, most of which will come or be on Connect, and then to do well in 3 weeks on your chapter exam, your chapter test. Okay, so let's take a look here. And so chapter 6 is entitled A Comer, and it is Let's Eat. It's about food, dining, and the things surrounding that. So let's take a look at this. And most of you, I mean, you've had Spanish now, so a lot of it will be reviewing vocabulary, things around dining and food. But let's see what specifically it is that they want us to know here. Okay, so 1 second. Okay, excuse me, I didn't mean to jump so far ahead. Okay, so the next thing we want to do is to go to page 165, the next page, and we're going to look at the section called Comunicación, and these are just idiosyncratic ways, not very difficult, but just some basic phrases and things you'll need to know when you're dealing with food and dining. That's how they choose these. A lot of these phrases you may already know, but they want you to know that. Okay, so we're going to look at the comunicación section. Then we're going to go to vocabulario. And of course, in this unit, it's going to be food. And then finally, we're going to go to estructura, which is structure or grammar. We're going to look at grammar. And all those elements will be on your homework, your upcoming homework, and on your chapter test. Okay, so let's take a look here. So the Comunicación here wants to give us some phrases, basic phraseology. Again, this stuff is very basic. How do you respond to an invitation to eat something, basically? So that's what they're trying to do. So if somebody asks you if you'd like to drink or eat or partake of a food, how might you answer? I mean, that's as simple as this is. So there's a little exercise. You can listen and do this on your own, but let's go right to the next page where they show us exactly what they want you to know. This is on page 166. So how can you respond if somebody is offering you food or drink? So if they invite you to in this case, eat something or do something, these are ways you might respond. Yes, please. So I might say, do you want some coffee? ¿Quieres café? Sí, gracias. Or if it's not a bother, you might say, si no es molestia, if it's not a bother. What else? There are more emphatic expressions you can use. Claro que sí. That means, of course, sure. Claro que sí. Literally, clear that yes. Clearly, yes. Claro que sí. Or, como no? Uh, of course. How not? Or you'll often hear, you might hear con mucho gusto. Gusto is like desire, with a lot of desire. Or por supuesto. Of course. That's usually translated as of course. But they all kind of mean of course. Okay, they're an emphatic way of saying yes. And here is a question. Me traes, there's the verb traer, ends in an S, so it's the to form. You'll bring to me, me traes un café, por favor. Can you bring me a coffee, please? And the person answers, sí, como no, very emphatically. Yes, of course. And they might answer, gracias. Now, let's see. Okay. And we'll not worry about the rest of that section there. Okay, let's continue on to page 167. And there's some more basic language, again, phraseology, and this is in the comunicación section, that you might use surrounding food, an invitation to eat, and or when you're out to dining. Okay, so you might, how would you invite somebody to eat or drink something? That's basically what we're dealing with here. So how would you, do you feel like having some tea? Would you like a sandwich? That's kind of the idea here. And so first of all, you could use the verb querer, of course, the verb to want. Now notice they've split this section up, the screen up in two sections. There are two U's in Spanish, right? There's the familiar to that you use with friends and family. The familiar you to you use with friends and family. They're on the left. And on the right, you have usted, the formal you that you would use with somebody you don't know really well, okay? Or if you're in a hierarchical situation and maybe they're over you, a supervisor, you might use usted with them. But usually you use it like maybe with your wait or waitress, you would use usted if you don't know them, or you're with a salesperson out in the public. But two you would use with friends and family. So I just wanted you to be clear on that. That should have been learned in Spanish 101. And so they're giving you two ways to invite somebody to eat or drink something. So you can use querer. So you should know how to conjugate it. ¿Quieres un café? O ¿quieres tomar café? And if you use usted, it will be quiere. ¿Quiere usted un sándwich? ¿Quiere un café? All right. Now, and that is using the verb querer with a noun. You can also use querer with a verb. You know, do you want to drink some coffee as opposed to do you want coffee? So instead of saying do you want a sandwich, you could say, do you want to eat a sandwich, for example. So you can use it with verbs. That's all they're showing you here. And so we have quieres and then whatever infinitive. So look at what they're asking here. ¿Quieres ir al restaurante? Do you want to go to the restaurant? Your verb is go. It's in the infinitive form. The usted form is quiere usted ir. Do you want to go? Okay. Now, another phrase is tener ganas de, and that is to feel like. Okay. So tienes ganas de pizza. You can use it with a noun, or you can use it with a verb. Tienes ganas de comer pizza. And you can use it in the usted form. I'm not going to go through all of this. What's another phrase you can use to invite somebody to eat? ¿Qué te parece? Okay. ¿Qué te parece? All right. And that would be, how does it, parecer is to appear to you. Okay. Yeah, and it's again, this is the to form. ¿Qué te parece? How does it appear to you a hamburger? Basically, do you feel like having a hamburger? ¿Qué te parece? Okay. How does it look to you? How does it, so they use parecer, the verb to appear. How does it appear to you? And then you put your item of food or drink, okay? And it's basically means, do you feel like having a hamburger? Okay, let me see. ¿Qué te parece? In English, we might even say, what do you think about? What do you think about having a hamburger? What do you think about drinking a beer? That's kind of what it means. And then finally, te apetece. Apetecer is for you, if you crave or desire something. So te apetece, and usually un café. Do you desire coffee? Would you like some coffee? Almost what do you feel like having coffee? Te apetece. So you could say, ¿Qué te parece un café? Or te apetece un café. And likewise, you can use the usted form. ¿Qué le parece un café? Or le apetece un café. You know, you can use these terms. So they mean to feel like, desire, want. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much more time. Now, how would you decline an invitation to eat? Okay, you could just say, no, gracias. ¿Te apetece un café? Or quieres un café? If you don't want any, you just say, no, thanks. And then they give you other phrases here. No puedo comer más, I can't eat more. No puedo tomar más, I can't drink more. And they give you, you can even be more polite and say, no puedo, debo estudiar, I have to study. They're trying to show you polite ways out of it. I'm spending a lot of time on this, maybe more than I should, but I just want you to be familiar with these phrases. On your test, you will be in a situation where you get the building blocks for a conversation, and you may have to use some of these phrases. They will give you the phrases that go to a conversation, and they'll tell you, order these phrases into a logical conversation between two people. And so I want you to have a feel for what these words mean. Okay, so we can move on now from comunicación. So we've covered one of the three sections of what we're going to look at tonight. Now, now we can go to vocabulario, okay? And that's on page 169. By the way, I'm focusing on what's super important here. Please read through this section. There is extra information and some activities for you to do, and I would suggest you just spend the time and look at them and get yourself familiar with them. Here's some basic vocabulary, like if you want to tell people to enjoy your meal, you would say buen provecho. You hear it all the time in Spanish, buen provecho, or bon appetit in French, or enjoy your meal. Just good vocabulary to know. Okay. Let's see. Now we're on vocabulary, and this is page 169. And so many of you have had this. This should be a review for most of you, but familiarize yourself with the vocabulary on your exercises and on your test. You're going to have sections and sentences and things you hear or listen to or read dealing with food items. So you should have the basic terms down. So let's take a look for describing food items. How do you say meat? It's la carne. Seafood, los mariscos. And they give you the names, and you can go through these, okay? And you may know some of these already. El pescado is fish. El pollo, double L is pronounced like a Y, is chicken. Carne de puerco o de cerdo is pork. Okay, los camarones, shrimp. Here are los comestibles. Comestibles are foods from comer. Enlatados, either they would be in canned foods or packaged foods. So what might you find in a can? el atún, tuna. Or you might find in a package, you might find los frijoles, a very common food eaten all throughout Central America, Mexico, and the Caribbean, los frijoles. Okay, they might be in a package. Bread comes wrapped often in plastic, pasta. So take a look at those terms. Los productos lácteos would be your milk dairy products. Okay, so you got la mantequilla, butter, la leche, milk, el yogur, el flan, one of the most commonly consumed postres or desserts in Latin America, flan, like custard. Okay, helado, there's helado from ice cream. Las verduras, okay, greens, vegetables. Know these? El broccoli, la cebolla, onion, los champiñones or hongos are mushrooms, los chiles, right, are your peppers, la lechuga, which we have in a salad. La lechuga is lettuce. It's not a good picture. El maíz, corn, etc. So please take a look. Las frutas are fruits. We have las fresas, strawberries. El limón is lemon. El mango, la manzana is your apple. La naranja is orange. El plátano would be banana. Condiments as oil, aceite, okay. And many people now are very concerned about aceite, not just because of fat, but certain of our oils are highly processed from vegetable seed, and some people feel they are not the best for you, that a cold press, non-chemically altered and processed oil is much better for you. But la sal, salt, vinagre, vinegar. Okay, and then some drinks. Las bebidas. Beber means to drink. So cerveza, beer, jugo, juice, vino blanco, white wine, vino tinto, red wine. Okay, so let's take a look. So I'm sure you know a lot of these. I'm just you're going to be seeing these sorts of words, and you should be getting familiar or refamiliarizing yourself. Again, look at the different sections. I'm kind of jumping around here, but go through some of the readings here. Here they talk about a famous Peruvian chef. In the past 10 years or so, 10, 20 years, Peruvian food has become a spectacular success globally. It's really considered one of the best cuisines in the world now. And there's a story here on a Peruvian chef. Okay, let me see. And let me go on here. And excuse me, they did do something here. I jumped a little too far too fast. Give me a second. Yeah. Let me see. Okay, we did yeah, okay. And I'm sorry about that. So we're back in vocabulario. I had jumped to estructura, but so we're in 169, and then we can go to 170. They just give you some more fruits and vegetables and foods, and there's different ways of saying them. So some people might refer in Latin America to the banana as a guineo, some as a banana, some as a plátano. And that's basically what I wanted you to see. A soda can be a soda or a refresco. There are alternate terms. Okay. Here are the various meals throughout the day. You should know these. El desayuno is breakfast. El almuerzo is lunch. And la comida is your meal, dinner. And merienda is a snack. And la cena is also to dine. La cena is the dinner as well. La comida is a meal. Okay, so you have la comida, which means just a meal. Cena means dinner. Almuerzo is lunch, and desayuno is breakfast. And then there are your corresponding verbs, which you should have had. Okay. Look through this section. Again, get familiar with the different foods, el pan, el pescado, el ajo is garlic, naranjas are oranges, jamón, ham, aceite, oil. Okay. And then, so take a look at these. You can do some of these, again, to familiarize yourself with the different types of foods. Now, along with the foods, when you're out, you're going to dine and you're going to need to know the dining utensils. Please learn these. They're very simple. The utensils you use to eat and drink with. So a vaso is a glass like of water, but a taza is used for a hot drink like tea or coffee. El bowl is a bowl. El plato, plate or dish. Cuchara is your spoon. Cuchillo with that double L is the knife. And tenedor is the fork. And the word for napkin is servilleta. Make sure you know those. Those will definitely crop up on your exam. And let's continue on. Here's some more food terms. I wouldn't worry so much about them, but you can take a look at these. Al ajillo. So you could have pescado al ajillo or pollo al ajillo. Pollo al ajillo would be chicken fried with garlic. Salsa is a word for sauce. Asado is roasted. Dulce, sweet. Frito, fried. Papas fritas are French fries. Make sure you take a look at this. When you order food in Spanish, we use the verb pedir or ordenar. You could say, yo pido un café. I'm ordering coffee, or yo ordeno un café. Just some basic. The word for a waiter is camarero, camarera, if female, or mesero, mesera, if female. Okay. And then here's some vocabulary you can look at here when you're out ordering at a restaurant. Okay. Now, they do a little section here on the idea of the menu. Okay. And I think they go into a lot of detail here. And since you're tested on it, I will a little bit. So, when I'm out dining, normally in a Spanish restaurant or a Latin American restaurant, or whether I'm in the States or overseas, I never see this distinction, but they teach it here. So what they tell you in the book, and this is on page 174, and please familiarize yourself with it. It's very simple, but the menu they say in many in Spain, particularly a better high quality restaurant, means what? It's a set menu for the day. So it will start off with a primer plato, okay, a like a first course, un primer plato or a sopa. Then there'll be a segundo plato, okay, a second course or the plato principal, the principal course. Then there will be a postre or dessert, a drink, and it will all come in at a precio fijo. Precio is price, a fixed price. So it will be very rigid, pre-selected. And they refer to that as el menú. Okay. But what we're used to when we go out, what we call a menu, right, is la carta. So it is a bunch of items like here. This is a carta. And so there's aperitivos, there's sides, there's different main courses. Okay, and there's different desserts and different drinks. So it's not a fixed price, it's not a set menu. It's called la carta. You select off of it. That's what they want you to know. Okay, so you get your main dish, okay, and then you would get your acompañante or your side. You would order, and then you might order a drink, and then you'll order dessert in whatever combination you want. There's no fixed price. It's not set like on the menu. Okay, page 176. We can now move on to estructura. And estructura is grammar. And the grammar sections here will often start off with reciclaje if you've not used this book before. It just gives you old grammar you should know from 101. We'll just take a quick look at that. And then they'll start into the grammar lesson, and they'll give you the grammar without explaining it. So they'll give you an example. So today, what we're going to learn about is the preterite tense of regular verbs. So what is the preterite tense? It's the past tense, the simple past tense, like I started, okay? We walked, okay? Usually in English, you think of the verbs that end in ed, just our simple past tense, unless it's highly irregular, like I ate, we saw, okay, they came. Just the simple past tense in Spanish is known as the preterite. And so they give us an example of it here, and this is on the chef from Peru that I had jumped ahead and talked to you a little bit about. They talk a little bit about him there. But Virgilio Martinez, and you can look at this and go through it. So without explaining to you what the preterite is, they give you a reading and they ask you some questions, okay? But if you continue on, now they will actually explain the grammar. I like to have the grammar explained to me first. So under actividades analíticas, let's take a look at this on page 177. So these are, how do you form the simple past? Up until now, we only know how to conjugate verbs in what? The present tense. We learned different forms of the present tense. And how do we, so here we want to conjugate a verb, right? We have to match the verb up. We'll start off with the infinitive, and there's 3 types of verbs in Spanish. Verbs either end in AR, ER, or IR. We should all know that by now. It's very important to know whether you have an AR, ER, or IR verb, because that will affect the way you conjugate it. And it's very easy to know this. Usually on your exams, they'll give you the verb in the AR, ER, IR form. But even if they don't, you should know whether you're dealing with an AR, ER, or IR verb. Now you want to go ahead and conjugate it. So when we conjugate it in the present tense, what did we do? We got the stem of the verb, and then we put endings onto the stems. And the endings we put on the stem depended upon what? On the subject, the actor, who's ever doing the action. Is it yo, I? Is it tú, you? Is it él, he, ella? Or usted, the formal you? Is it nosotros that's doing the acting? Or is it ellos, they? Or ustedes, you all? That will determine the ending, right? So we had to learn those. So it's the same for the preterite. We get the stem of the verb, and then we add on our preterite endings, depending upon what the subject is of the sentence. So how do you get the stem of a verb? In Spanish, you drop the AR if it's an AR verb, you drop the ER if it's an ER verb, and you drop the IR if it's an IR verb. You just drop it, and now you've got the stem. So for trabajar, the stem is trabaj. For aprender, it's aprende, and for escribir, it's escribe. So half the battle's done. So we know how to get the stem. So now when we go to conjugate this verb, it will be yo traba. Now, what's the ending? Unfortunately, they don't give it to you here, but they will in a few seconds. It's yo trabaje. And it will have an accent mark at the end. And it means I worked. What about tú? Again, it'll be tú trabaja. I'm sorry. Tu, tu traba. Tu traba. You drop the AR ending. That's the stem. And what's the ending? It's going to be aste. Tu trabajaste. You worked. What about el or ella? It'll be traba. Now the ending will be an O. So él trabajó. He worked. What about nosotros? It's going to, again, there's your stem, traba, and the ending will be amos. So trabajamos. Now notice trabajamos, not only does it mean we worked, it also means we are working, or we work in the present. And so they have the same form in both the past and the present. And you can tell from the context of what you're talking about, whether you're using the past or present. Forget about vosotros. We're not going to learn that. And then we have the they form, ellos or ellas. Again, we get the stem, trabaj, and then we put aron, trabajaron. They worked, ellos trabajaron, or we can use you all. You all worked is ustedes trabajaron. Let's take a look at aprender and escribir. This is good for us. They all, now they form the same way. You get the stem of the verb, but the endings are different than the AR verbs. The ER and the IR verbs have the same endings. So that's good news. It's less rules to learn. So let's take the verb escribir. So the stem is escrib. I drop the IR and now I put my ending on. It's going to be an I and with an accent mark. Yo escribí. I wrote. You wrote, tu would be tu escrib. You add on an iste. What about el, ella? They don't give it here, but we'll look at it in a few seconds. It's el escribio, io ending. We wrote, it's going to be imos, so it's nosotros escribimos. Notice nosotros escribimos also means we are writing in the present. You can tell from context whether it's past or present. Forget about vosotros. And then for ellos, they wrote as ellos escribí, and then we put ieron on the end. They wrote as ellos escribieron, or ustedes escribieron. And if we look below, here's the full, what do you call it, table of endings. Learn these endings, okay? So it will be the stem of the verb. For AR verbs, stem, and you're going to add for yo an E with an accent mark on it. For tu, you're going to add an aste. For el, a, and usted, you're going to add an O with an accent mark. For nosotros, you're going to add an amos on to the end of the stem. And for ellas and ustedes, you're going to add on an aron. For ER and IR verbs, you're going to take the stem and add on an I when it's yo, iste when it's tu, yo when it's el or ella or usted, imos when it's nosotros, and ieron when it's ustedes or ellos. That's it. So everyone should be able now to recognize and actually conjugate any regular AR, ER verb, IR verb in the preterite tense. Okay. Here they give you the vos form. The vos form is another form of tu, used in certain areas. In Costa Rica, it's used a lot, kind of informally. It's more intimate even than tu in Costa Rica and in parts of Central America and Colombia. Generally, these countries use tu, but they will amongst close friends and in certain regions of Central America and Colombia, they will use vos kind of interchangeably almost. And vos conjugates pretty much like tu, but you don't need to be any more aware of it than that. I just wanted to point it out. Okay. When you're using the preterite tense, there's certain time expressions you're going to see with it. Ayer, yesterday. So you were going to say, yesterday I ate some food. Or last night I drank some coffee. That's all they want you to see, that these words will often trigger the use of the preterite. So ayer and anoche, that's all they're showing you. So here's an example. El supermercado cerró. There's that verb cerrar. Cerró. It closed. I can tell by that O accented ending that it's the preterite, the it form. The supermarket closed muy temprano, very early yesterday. Or anoche, from the verb cenar, to dine. Last night, cené. Last night, I dined at 8. Notice I can tell immediately cené means I dined. I don't need the yo. Like in English, you always have to have the subject pronoun. I ate. You wouldn't say last night ate at the park. You wouldn't know who they're talking about. But in Spanish, the A ending with the accent on it, the A ending, cené, it can only mean I ate. You ate would be anoche cenaste, okay? Or I could say anoche cenamos, we ate, all right? Now, I could say anoche cenaron, but I might want to be clarified. That could mean you all ate or they ate. So I might say anoche ellos cenaron. But what I want you to see is you don't always have to have the subject pronoun. Okay. And then you'll often see you can use the phrase hace and then a period of time. Hace 5 años means 5 years ago. Hace 5 minutos means 5 minutes ago. So, trabajé hace 5 minutos. I worked 5 minutes ago. Comimos hace 2 minutos. Just basic Spanish. Okay, finally, the preterite tense of regular verbs is very easy. Okay, the preterite tense of regular verbs forms stem and ending, but there are a few spelling changes, and they only occur with verbs that end in gar. Okay, so what verb ends in gar? There's just a few that we have, like jugar, or verbs that end in car, practicar, to practice, or verbs that end in zar. So this only happens to AR verbs, but verbs that end in zar, car, or gar. And what happens is that for verbs that end in gar, when you form the yo form of the preterite, only for yo, not for to, el, not for any of the other verbs, they conjugate, just like we learned above. These have a spelling change. The G from the stem, so the stem of yegar is yeg, you have to add a U into it, and then you add on the E for yos. It only affects yo, so it's yo yege. When you write it, you add a U into it. When you speak it, you would never know. It's when you write it. If you didn't add that U in and you were reading it, it would be yo yehe. So you put that U in there to get a hard G. These are minor spelling changes. I'm just showing them to you. We're not going to focus a lot on it. So here's another verb. It's an AR verb, and it ends in it's car, C-A-R, so there's going to be a change. The C will go to Q-U only in the preterite form of yo. So yo practique. Yo practique. So the C morphs or changes into a Q-U, but it still has that E accented ending. And then for verbs that end in zar, like empezar, the Z changes to C. So yo empecé. And I'm not going to spend any more time on that, but that's one spelling change that affects verbs that end in car, gar, and zar when you conjugate them into the preterite tense, only in yo. Okay, let's move on. Let's see. Okay, please go through these exercises here. Look at the different questions. Here's a conversation between Gonzalo and asking different questions, and you should be able to understand some of this. So let's take a look here. And just to get you to start to get the feel of working with the predator. So from page 179, we have some conversations going on here, but let's just look at what Gonzalo says here. He says, desayuné a las 6:30. You should know immediately what that means. You see the E with the accent mark on it, you know the verb desayunar, it's an AR verb. When it has an A ending, it's the yo form in the preterite. So it means I had breakfast, or I breakfasted at 6:30. And then somebody asks them, ¿Y qué desayunaste? You should understand that. What and what aste did you have for breakfast? What did you breakfast on? It's the past tense of breakfast. In the to form, what did you have for breakfast? It ends in aste, okay? And then look at this question. ¿A qué hora cenaste ayer? Cenaste, it ends in aste. We know that cenar means to have dinner. So what time did you dine yesterday? And I point this out because nowhere in English you would have to say, what time did you dine? Okay. You don't need the you. You don't need the to in the sentence. If I want to say I dined, I would say cené. I wouldn't necessarily say yo cené. So you don't have to have the subject pronoun. So you need to be able to recognize the verbs. Look at the question here. ¿Qué cenaste? What did you eat? And then look at what Pilar and Maria say. Anoche cenamos a las 10. Last night, cenamos. We had dinner, or we dined at 10. And I can tell it's the past tense because it's anoche. Cenamos can also mean we are dining. Okay. And then here it says, que cenaron. Aaron. What did you all dine on? It's the ustedes or ellos form, Aaron. So it doesn't say que cenaron ustedes, it just says que cenaron. If I look at two people and I'm having a conversation, I would be asking them que cenaron. I could say que cenaron ustedes, but again, I don't need the subject pronoun. So take a look at these and make sure you can recognize who's talking to whom. Is it a to question or statement? Is it a yo question or statement? Is it a we question or statement? Is it a you all or they? Okay, so look at those. Okay, finally, what else? Let's see. Okay, let me see. Okay, now we're going to go to page 180. Okay, let's see if I can get us there easily. 1 second and not go too far ahead. Okay, let's see. Okay, here. So we're on page 180. So estructura or grammar or structure is often broken up into different parts. So the first part of estructura or grammar just gave us the preterite tense of regular AR, ER, and IR verbs. Okay. Now there are unfortunately a bunch of irregular preterites, and we have them in English too. We say I worked, but for eat, I don't say I eated. We say I ate. Okay. I talked. For see, I don't say I seed. We say I saw. Well, Spanish also has irregular preterites, and notice how they're totally different. You just need to learn these. Just like in English, seed is very different than saw. So, eated is very different than ate. And the same thing happens in Spanish. These are irregular. Just like in English, they have irregular verbs in Spanish and irregular verbs in the preterite. So let's take a look at them. Okay, so first of all, two very important verbs in Spanish are ir, to go. You should all know what that means and how to conjugate it, of course, in the present tense. And ir, as if you recall, is almost always followed by what? The preposition a. Yo voy a comer. I am going to eat. Or yo voy a la escuela. I'm going to the school. And then we have the verb ser. That's the verb to be. We have a star, and then we have the verb ser, which gives us identity, permanent quality of somebody or their identity. Yo soy Professor Miles. Okay. Okay. Let's move on. So how do we conjugate the verb to go? How do we say I went, you went, he went, they went? How do we conjugate it in the preterite? What about ser too? How do I say I was, you were, he was? That's what we're going to learn now. Both these verbs are completely irregular. You don't take the stem and the ending. You just have to memorize them. They're completely irregular. And here we are. And the other weird thing about this is ir, the verb to go, and ser, the verb to be. In the preterite, conjugate exactly the same. So you can tell by context. If you say yo fui, you could tell, oh, they mean I went as opposed to I was. So yo fui means I went or I was. Tu fuiste means you went or you were. Él fue was he went or he was. Nosotros fuimos means they went or they were. And ellos fueron means they went or they were. Ustedes fueron, that you all went or you were. You tell from context. And I told you that the verb ir always is, or most always is followed by a. So if you have an a in the sentence, and then you could tell by looking at it, you can, oh, they mean to go, not to be. So look at the first question here. ¿A dónde fueron ustedes? It's not going to be were you, it would be did you all go? All right. Ustedes is you all. Fueron ustedes. It's go. Why? ¿A dónde? Remember, we use a dónde always with ir. ¿A dónde fueron ustedes? Okay. Now, look at this. Fuimos al supermercado. Again, fuimos is followed by what? A él. So it's the ir form. So nosotros fuimos. We went to the supermarket. All right, look at the next one. Alberto Fujimori fue presidente del Perú. Is that so? It says Alberto Fujimori was the president. There's no a after it. And if you look at the context, you're giving his identity. He was the president. And here's another one. We can also use ir to give location of events. Okay, usually we use a star to give location, but with events we can use things that you can't touch, like a conference, a class, party. We would use ser, and there's no a with it, so la fiesta fue. The class was en casa de Ana. Okay, all right. Now here, so make sure you know ir and ser and how to conjugate them in the preterite. Now, here are your verbs that are completely irregular in the preterite tense. They have special tenses. There's I stem. I'm sorry, not special tenses. They have special stems. So again, we don't put stem and ending. We just have to learn radically learn a whole new stem. Okay, so we don't drop the IR or the AR or the ER. It's not like the regular verbs. We have to learn a whole new stem. And there's I stems, U stems, and J stems. Let's take a look. And let me see if they do a better chart here before I move on. Okay. Hold on one second. Okay, I'm going to go back. Okay, well let's take a look here. All right. So we're on item number 2 here. Okay, on page 180. And so let's take a look. So here are your stems below. You have stems with an I in them, stems with a U in them, stems with an I and a U. I'm sorry, stems with an I, a U, and a J, and I'm a J stem. Okay, so let's look at decir. So what is the stem of that verb for our purposes? These are what you're going to learn. It's going to be D, D-I-J. You got to learn this. So whenever you see decir and you want to put it in the preterite or past tense, it's going to be di. So it's going to be yo di, tú di, él di, nosotros di, and ellos di. Everyone see that? Now you have to learn the endings, and you just have to learn them. And these are a little different than the endings we already learned for the AR, ER, and IR verbs. So for the yo form, it's going to be an E, no accent, just an E. So it's going to be dije. I don't know why they didn't write it here, but they didn't. But they wrote it here. They did it with a star. So it's yo dije. You said it's going to be D, and your ending will be iste. So for all these irregular verbs, iste will be the ending you put on the stem. In the case of decir, the stem is D, which you're learning now. What about el? It's going to be an O. So dijo, dijo. Ella dijo, usted dijo, you said. What about nosotros? Dijimos. Imos is your ending. And what about ellos? It's going to be Aaron will be your ending. E-R-O-N. Dijeron. They said, or ustedes dijeron. Let's take a look at estar. So we have J stem verbs, we have U stem. So estar is a very important verb, the other verb to be, when you're telling where something is located. So estuve is your stem, estuve, S-T-U-V. And so I was, again, you put the E on the end, yo estuve, I was. What about tú? It's going to be estuve with an E standing, tú estuviste. What about el? Your ending's going to be O. So él estuvo, nosotros estuvimos, imos was our ending. And for they were is ellos estuv. And now we put on an ieron, I-E-R-O-N. Here with the J stem verb, we put E-R-O-N. Only when you have a J in the stem do you put E-R-O-N. Otherwise, you'll always have an I-E-R-O-N. And it tells you that here. It's a little picky point of spelling and grammar, but I wanted to point that out to you. What about hacer? Very important verb, to make or do. You want to say I did it or I made it. So what is the stem? I think you can see it here. It's is, H-I-C. So yo hice is your ending. Tu hiciste, you made or did. What about usted? Look at the spelling on it. It's hizo, but we have to change the C to a Z. So the spelling on it changes. Hizo, el hizo. But notice the ending is O. And so, and finally, nosotros hicimos. It's is and imos. And then they did. Ellos is, and then ieron. And finally, what about poner is to put or place. The stem is not pon, it's pus. You just have to learn these. So, yo puse, tú pusiste, él puso, he put or placed. Nosotros pusimos, we put or placed. Ustedes pusieron, you all put or placed. So again, notice the endings. For yo, the ending is E. For tú, it's iste. For el, ella, it's O. For nosotros, it's imos. And for ellos, ustedes, it's ieron. But if the stem has a J in it, like D, it's eron. Okay, and let's take a look. Let's take a look at some of these sentences here. It says, no dije nada. Notice there's no yo in that sentence. But I can tell immediately it means I didn't say anything, because dije can only pertain to yo. It's got the E ending. Look at this. Estuviste en la fiesta? I know it means you too. Were you at the party? Okay. ¿Qué hizo Mario? What did Mario do? And then pusimos la comida. We put or placed the food there. Okay. Okay. Anyway, here is, it should be hicieron. So, and I guess they're showing you that the ending is hicieron, but they made. It could also mean you all made. That's not really clear here. But anyway, let's move on. So make sure you know these roots when you're going to form the preterite tense of these verbs. There are I stem, U stem, and J stem roots. Make sure you know them. So for decir, the stem is not going to be des, it'll be dich. For estar, it'll be estuv. For hacer, it'll be is. For poder, to be able to, could, I could, pude, I could, I was able to, is pud. For poner, put or place, is pus, I put it. Yo lo puse. Tener, to have. Very important verb. I had money. Yo tuve dinero, tuve. And to bring is tra. Notice that tra ends in a J, like D, their J stem. So the Eos form will be E-R-O-N, not I-E-R-O-N. Okay. Let's see. What else? Okay. I'm just kind of moving through this. Make sure you go through this section and look at some of the examples here on page 162. Once you feel comfortable with conjugating these irregular preterites. Okay, let me see. Okay, case, yeah, okay. Okay. All right, I think that's pretty good. Let me see if there's any more. Oh. Okay, so now let's go to page 184. Okay, so we're going to go to 184 and we're going to finish up the last bit of estructura. And these are the direct objects. So we have to identify what's a direct object in a sentence, and then what are the direct object pronouns. Say we want to get rid of the direct object and replace it with its pronoun. What are they and how do we do this? It's very simple. So let's take a look at this. Now, again, here we are on page 184, 185. Okay, so here's your actividades analíticas. We want to look at the pronombres, the pronouns, and we want to look at the direct objects or el objeto directo. Okay, so what is the direct object in a sentence? It's the thing that receives action, like I see the bird. So what received the action? The bird. All right. I see Paul. He receives the action. I gave the gift. What was the direct object? The gift. Okay. I ate the potatoes. Potatoes is your direct object. Okay. Now, what if we want to say, instead of I ate the potatoes, I want to use the pronoun. A pronoun is a word used to substitute for a person, place, or thing. So I might want to say, instead of I ate the potatoes, I might want to say I ate them. Instead of saying I saw Bob, I might want to say I saw him. Instead of saying I saw Mary, I might want to say I saw her. If I want to say, I don't know, I ate the steak, I might want to say I ate it. And that's really what we want to do. So how do I say him, her, it, them? That's basically what the direct object pronouns are. Okay, so what are they? So let's take a look. And it will give us it here on a little chart. And these are the direct object pronouns. So if I want to say Bob saw me, I'm the direct object. So it's going to be me, me. He saw me in Spanish. Bob saw you, it'll be te, te. Bob saw John. Now I want to say Bob saw him. It'll be lo. What if I want to say Bob saw a thing like the book? It'll be lo. All right. If I want to say Bob saw her, it would be la. And what if it's a feminine thing, like Bob saw, I don't know, let me see, la uva, like a grape. I would use la. Okay. Bob saw us, it'll be nos. And Bob saw them. What if Bob saw all these people? I would use them would be los. And if Bob, also, what if Bob saw the books? I would also use los. He saw them. I don't want to use books anymore. I want to use the pronombre or the pronoun. I would say them. And what if I saw Bob saw the grape? He saw it, it would be la. If I said Bob saw the grapes, plural, them, I would use las. Now, why las? Because grapes is feminine. So let's take a quick look here at some questions here or some examples. Look at this question. Conocer, we remember, it's the to form. It's saying, do you know me? And then the person says, perdón, no te oí. I didn't hear you. Yo no, I didn't hear you. Oí is the past tense of oír. I didn't hear you. And then Marta nos invitó. It's a preterite of invita. Martha invited us. Okay, so me, te, and nos are all your indirect object pronouns. Okay, so let's take a quick look here. Now, notice where do we place the indirect object pronouns in Spanish? They always come before the conjugated verb. You see, te oí, nos invitó, me conoces. In English, it's just the opposite. We would put the me after the verb. We would put the pronoun after the verb. I hear you, or I didn't hear you. I invited, or he invited us. I would put it after the verb. So remember, this is very important. The placement of the direct object pronoun always comes before the conjugated verb, and you have to get used to this. Now, let me see if I can move on here and give us some, let's look at these specific rules. Now we'll go into a little more detail and page 185. So look at number 4. Direct object pronouns are usually placed before the conjugated verb. Okay, if the conjugated verb is immediately followed by an infinitive, the pronoun can be attached to the end of the infinitive. I'll just show you that. Okay, usually you put them before the conjugated verb. Okay, but if there are two verbs, you have the option of attaching it to the end of the second verb if it's an infinitive. Don't worry so much about that. You'll be tested on this first part. Okay, so you'll always be putting your what? Your pronouns before the conjugated verb. But if there are two verbs and one is an infinitive, you can attach the pronoun to the end. Now, look at what the it says here, puedo encontrar el libro en la biblioteca. Now this means what? I can find the book in the library. And now we want to say, I can find it in the, no, I'm sorry, I can find the book in the library. Now I want to get rid of the word book and replace it with its correct pronoun. So you need to know what is the pronoun in Spanish for el libro. So go back up to this chart. Okay. If it's a singular item and it's masculine, you want to say it will be lo. And if it's a person, it will could also mean him. Everybody got that? If it's a singular item and you want to say it will be, and it's feminine, it'll be la, and la is also used for her. So basically, you're going to be subbing out the direct objects. You're going to get them on your test. They're going to be items, nouns, and if it's masculine and you want to, and it's singular, you use lo for it. If it's feminine and singular, you use la for it. Finally, what if the item, because on your exam, you're going to be giving items or nouns, not people, but so if it's a plural masculine noun, and you want to say, I see the books. Now you want to get rid of the books. Now you want to say, I see them. Books is what? Masculine and plural. So you're going to use los. Yo los veo. Okay. So if the direct object is masculine and plural, you use los. If it's feminine plural, you use las. So let's say, I see the fruits. Yo veo las frutas. Now I want to say, I see them. Frutas is what? Feminine and plural. So to say them, I use las. So I would say, yo las veo. Not yo veo las, yo las veo. Okay, so the direct object in Spanish goes directly, the direct object pronoun goes directly before the conjugated verb. And that makes this a whole lot easier. Now, if I want to say, I see them, the books, I could say, yo los veo. I'm using los for them because it's masculine and plural. Or I could say, what else? Los veo. Notice I don't need the yo form. So a lot of times you'll see a sentence that will start off with a lo or a la or a los and a las, and then you'll see a verb and you go, what's that? You don't need the subject pronoun. Look at the verb. If it says veo, that means I see. So I don't have to say yo lo veo, I see it. I can just say lo veo. Okay. Say I want to say that I'm drinking it. El jugo. Okay, so to drink would be tomo el jugo. I'm drinking the juice. I could say then, I want to say I drink it. Well, jugo is masculine and singular, so lo is the way I say it. So I would say yo lo tomo, or simply lo tomo. That means I'm drinking it, or I drink it. All right. What if you're drinking various juices? Then I could say los jugos, yo tomo los jugos. I'm drinking them. Yo los tomo, or simply los tomo. Okay, I don't need the subject pronoun. You might hear lo tomas. So you're saying tú lo tomas. You're drinking it. So you could say tú tomas el jugo, or simply tú lo tomas or lo tomas. So the sentence lo tomas would mean you're drinking it if you know the context of what you're talking about. So many times sentences that have a direct object pronoun in them will start off with the direct object pronoun. Lo, la, los, las. Is here. Me conoces. Do you know me? Okay. All right. Let me see. We could look at some of these questions. In addition to being used to mean it, masculine, feminine, him, her, them, the pronouns lo, la, los, las may be used to refer to people that you're addressing as usted, Okay, you could take a look at that. We're not going to be dealing with that, but you should be aware of that. Okay. And they do some exercises here with some readings, and you can look at these. Okay. All right. Let's look at some of these sentences just for the heck of it real quickly. And let's see. Okay. See if I can. Okay. Let's see what it says here. It says, lo domesticaron en America. Well, look at the domesticaron, aron. So it's they did something. Well, domesticar is to domesticate. So they domesticated it. Okay, it doesn't say ellos lo domesticaron, it's not necessary, but so it says lo domesticaron en America. They domesticated it in America. And here they're going to be talking about corn. Corn was domesticated in look at this. Los españoles las llevaron a Europa. So it's saying the Spanish llevar. What's llevar? To carry. Aron. So they carried them to Europe. Okay. Now the them here is feminine and plural. So maybe it's las tortillas, carried them. Okay. Las comen en México. Look at this. Las comen en México, Guatemala, y El Salvador. Well, comen means what? It's they eat. It could be you all eat or they eat. They eat them in Mexico. Notice they don't have any ellos las comen. It's just las comen. So you can, again, start off the sentence with the direct object pronoun. Now the las here is them. And again, they're talking either about tortillas or corn. So the best answer here would be tortillas. They eat them because the them is what? Las, the plural or the feminine plural of them is las. All right. If it were the corn is masculine, it would have been los comen, then if it meant corn. Okay. Look at this. Lo ponen en el agua. So they, what is it? Ponen means they put it in water with cal para hacer masa, in order to make a what do you call it? Like a batter para las tortillas, in order to make a batter for the tortillas. Okay, so lo ponen, they put it. Well, would the it be la tortilla or el maíz? El maíz, okay, because it's lo. Okay. So take a look at these. You could just read through this and to just go over some of this vocabulary and reinforce it. Okay. Let me see. Okay. All right. Okay. And then, so I think that about does it for this exam. I just wanted to tell you, so this should prep you for the upcoming exercises you have on Connect and also for the Chapter 6 tests in a few weeks. Your tests are generally multiple choice or short answer. Sometimes writing a question or two based on something. On this test, you're going to have some of that. You'll also be given lines and a conversation between two individuals like Oscar and Mary, and you're going to be given the lines will just be in any order. You're going to have to put them in the correct logical order. It takes a little time, but it's pretty easy to do. Look at your comunicación section. A lot of them are based on how you invite people to eat or to do something and how you respond. It's actually pretty simple. You're going to need to know the vocabulary, know what the fruits are, the verduras, the vegetables, the carne, meats, seafood, that those terms we learned earlier, bocadillo, sandwich, know that term. Look, it's not that demanding of an exam, but just familiarize yourself with the food vocabulary. Know the utensils: cuchara, spoon, cuchillo, plato, vaso for glass, taza for a cup for drinking a hot drink. Also, there is a section, and in your, let's see, Oh yeah, be able to know the preterite, okay? Know the preterite tense. If you're given the verb vivir, be able to, you'll be given the verb either in its ER, IR, or AR form, be able to conjugate it into the preterite, okay? And you'll be given some regular verbs and some irregular ones. Know your direct objects. And really what you need to know is how to say it, to substitute out a thing, like I eat the grapes, or let's say this. I eat the cereal. I eat it. Okay. Yo como el cereal, or yo lo como. You need to be able to sub out your direct objects. If they're masculine and singular, it's lo. If they're feminine and singular, like la leche, I drink the milk. Yo tomo la leche, or yo la tomo. Be able to form the word it. How do you say it when the item is masculine and singular? How do you say it when the item is feminine and singular? What about them? Okay, so I eat the grapes, las uvas, they're feminine plural, so yo las como. I see the books. How do I say them? Los. Yo los veo. I see them. So basically know how to say it or them if the item is masculine or plural, feminine, and singular. Okay, be able to do that. Let's see, anything else? Okay, and there is one thing on page, I believe it is on page 180, I wanted to bring to your attention. Again, I do ask that you go through all of this. At the beginning of Estructura 6.2, when they introduced the irregular preterites, there are these conectes, these cultural sections. Connect yourself to the Hispanic world, and they talk about some differences and similarities in habits or customs between Latin America when they dine and the United States when they dine. So take a look at this. For example, in Latin America, they tend to eat much later than in the United States. Okay, 8:30, 9:30, whereas we eat more time towards 5:36. You in the States, we would keep our hands. We're always told to keep them off the table, but in Latin America, generally you keep them up on the table. So there's differences. Take a look at this. And I think with this, you should be well prepared for your homework, upcoming homework and test. So best of luck. Okay.